What is a market? Well, the first thing, many of the public statements by our political leaders and our corporate leaders refer to us as having a market economy or a free market economy. So if that's what we are, we ought to talk about this and make sure we all kind of get what that means. And then there are others, many of them, who not only say we are a market economy, but go on and become absolutely poetic about the marvels of market economies, that these really are the ultimate achievement of the human intellect, something to be nurtured, preserved, celebrated, and given the absolute adulation of all of us. And I would like to take them down a peg, or maybe 10. So let me try to do that. First, what is a market? A market is not a complex event. A market is a system of distributing things. That's all it is. Distributing resources like land and the things we find in the ground and water and resources. And it's a system of distributing the products, the things we produce in factories, offices, and stores. Now, a market, that's all markets are. They're ways of distributing things. And here's how it works, just real simple. I make a pad. So I produce a pad. However it's done, I do that. Now, I'm a producer of pads, and I'm very proud of the pads I produce, but I noticed something, being very smart, that I can't eat this pad. Or it doesn't taste good, and it will not nourish me real well, and I'm going to get sick, and then I'm going to die, and then I won't be able to produce pads anymore. So I have a problem. I produce pads, damn good ones, but I have to acquire some other way food so I can eat, clothes that I can wear, all the other things of life. So in a market system, the way I acquire the things I need that I don't myself produce, because I produce pads, is I engage, here we go now, in a distribution system. I distribute my pad to a whole variety of people in exchange, keyword exchange, for them giving me the products they produce. Bread from the baker, shirts from the clothing maker, etc., etc. So I distribute how? In a quid pro quo. I'll give you 3 of these, you give me 4 of those. Or if there's a money system, I'll give you this for $3, and then I'll use my $3 to buy a bunch of carrots. I can eat the carrots, and I can't eat this. And meanwhile, you can keep track of the carrots you're growing by using my pad. So you get my pad, I get your carrots, and we have distributed, see that? We have moved stuff from the producer to the consumer by means of a quid pro quo exchange. I'll give you some of this. That's what a market is. That's what a market is. It's a way of distributing things. Second, through most of the history of the human race, markets were not the way people distributed things, neither resources nor products. For example, in the societies we nowadays like to call primitive, they didn't do that. You go check, do your anthropology, you'll see, they didn't do that. Here's what they did. Everybody produced whatever it is they produced. The baker made the bread, and the chicken farmer raised the chickens and the eggs. And then, at a certain time, when the chickens were done and the grain was grown, and they got together at a place, and they had someone they had confidence in distributed. Could be the king, could be the head man, could be the priestess, could be the council of elders, could be the religiously. Societies had lots of ways of doing that. And these people distributed the products according to what they thought in those communities was a reasonable way to do that. You understand? There was no bargain. The baker didn't say, I'll give you 2 loaves, give me that pad. It didn't go like that. All the loaves were put on a table, and the elders or whoever was given that power distributed them. It's very important you understand that. That was the way most of human history works. And again, to drive it home, that's how most of us work inside our families. Thanksgiving dinner. Mama makes the turkey. You're all gathered at the table. She cuts off the drumstick. Does she reach it out on the table and say, "One on my bid"? Well, that would be a market. If she distributed the cooked, no, it's serious. If she distributed the cooked turkey leg by getting a quid pro quo, you offer to give 2 sets of earrings for that, then that would be a... But she wouldn't do that. And nobody in the family would think of it. And if one of you said, "I want the turkey leg, I offer not 2 earrings, 3. And your sister said, "I offer 4. At some point, your father or your grandmother would intervene and say, "This is disgusting." And they would give you a little speech, wouldn't they? This is a family. You know, we do things for one another, this is important, because we love each other. I'm the mother, I make the turkey, I enjoy that. I enjoy that you enjoy eating it. I have a sense of satisfaction, a sense of being a nurturer. It means something to me. And I know you get a pleasure by having your mother cook for you because it has all this complex psychological... And so I'm not going to distribute it by a bargaining session. That's outrageous. That contradicts the way we want to distribute things amongst us in this family, which is out of caring for one another and loving one another. Wow. This is a way of saying, if you want to have love relationships, don't have markets. What a dangerous idea. Because if that's true in the family, here's a thought. It might be true outside the family too. What does it mean that in order to go to a hospital in most parts of the United States and get treated for an injury, the first question they ask you when you come in is, "Where's your insurance card?" That's a none too subtle way of saying, you want to be cured? Pay. I will give you 20 minutes of a doctor. You got to give me, and if you can't, you don't get. That's what a market is. You ought to think about whether a market is the way you want to distribute. What is this celebration of markets? Let me give you another example. As I told you, I flew to Los Angeles 10 days ago to do that program. And I noticed something on the airplane. Because I was the guest, I was given a first-class ticket. And United Airlines, I don't mind mentioning, why not? And United Airlines, on the airplane that I had 16 seats in the front, first-class seats. And then steerage, or whatever they call it, in the back. You know, those places where you are like a sardine in the can. My seats were charming. I had a lot of room. I could press a button. You may all know this. I was not familiar. I pressed a button, and the seat flattens out into a bed. So I can lie down. And as I pressed the button, the staff, by the way, the 16 of us in the front had exactly as many servers as the 200 in the back. We had as many toilets as they did, which is why you never had to wait online. The steerage people blew up, I guess, waiting online. Okay? So I thought about this in preparation for tonight. And here's what came to me. There are 2 kinds of seats on these planes. Horrible ones and lovely ones. 16 lovely ones and lots of horrible ones. And there are 200 and however many people there were on the plane as a whole. And so there is a issue here, isn't there? An issue is who is going to get the 16 seats? That's a distribution question. There's 16 places, and we have to distribute them. We can't give 16 places to 200 people. If there were 6 people on each seat, this is not comfortable. We don't have that. We rule that out. So Here's the question. Who gets the 16 seats? The nice ones, the pleasant ones. That's a distribution question. Now, here's the way we could do it. We could say, let's see, older people should go on the nice seats. Why? Because they're older. Their bones hurt. They ought to be able to lie down. They might need the rest more than the rest of us. You know, all the reasons that you might want to say, gee, old people. Here's the second one. Maybe it should go to people who are not feeling so good. Ill, maybe. Or with an injury, or something like that. That, kind of, I don't need to tell you this. Here's another one. Maybe those seats should go to a person who's never flown in an airplane before, to give him or her a real experience of the sort that would make them remember. That would be a charming thing to do, right? Let's keep records of who's been on airplanes, and if you can show you're on the list, you've never done this before, you're going to go up there, and you're going to see what this experience could be nice. Here's another one. Some people are, just a few, overweight. And sticking an overweight person in that sardine seat in the back is a peculiar kind of cruelty. Let's not do that. And if there are people who are overweight, let's let them sit there because they need it more than the rest of us do. You could do that. Here's another one. You could say, we have veterans amongst us. People who have given their all, or obviously if they've given their all, they wouldn't be there, but nearly their all. Part of their all they have given. And so in recognition that we appreciate this, if that's how we feel, they get a chance to get the seat. Here's another system. We could have rotation. Here's an idea. Everybody should have a chance to enjoy this remarkable experience. So we'll keep records and we'll check, and the computer makes this easy. Have you ever been in first class before? If you have, well, you kind of go to the end of the line. And if you haven't, well, you're in the group. Then we then select randomly. And over time, sooner or later, you're going to get your shot at being in the lovely seat. That would be an interesting thing. We could do it by lottery, with or without rotation. Make it like buying a ticket. You get it or you don't. Okay? We could even develop point system where all of these things would count. You'd get so many points if you're above 60. You'd get so many points if you've had a major illness. We could work out all kinds of systems that would allocate this set of seats, that is, distribute them under a set of rules that we would all find interesting and useful. We could even vote democratically as to which rules would apply. That way we would have a system that we all voted on. We had our say and the majority ruled. We don't do that. Instead, we allocate the seats by one rule, the market. And the seats go to the people who got the money. You don't got the money, you don't get the seat. You got the money, you get the seat. We don't care whether you made the money by hard work, whether you stole every nickel, whether you killed people to acquire it, whether you ripped off whole societies we don't care. We use the market. Now, let me be blunt with you. To believe that the market is a superior way to allocate resources and products is buffoonery. It's a kind of fundamentalism that outdoes even religious fundamentalism. The market is the best thing What? That's an insult to all of us. I just gave you 10 examples of alternative ways of distributing these things that at least are worth a conversation. We should shut up and say, market is the best. It isn't. Never was. You know who loves the market? The people with the money. And why is that? Because they get the winnings in a market system. That's all. And if you let them confuse you by suggesting, no, it's not that we like the markets because we have all the money. It's we like the markets because it's the most efficient. Stop. You're being hustled. That's the same person who's going to sell you a majority interest in the Brooklyn Bridge. You giggle, but you ought to giggle over the other one too. Now, some of you might say, because if you have conservative leanings in your family and they've infected you, you might say, well, the airline company gets a lot of money for those lovely seats, and that's how they earn their money. And if you let people who are old or sick or had never done it before sit there who couldn't pay extra, okay, let's examine that. One, if we let people sit in the front who paid the regular fare, that would mean that the profits of the airline companies would go down. Big deal. Why are we, who never see these profits, who don't get them, why does our heart beat for the profits they get? So they get less profits. Guess what? It still rains. The sun will come out. They'll just have less profits. And that will have consequences. But the world isn't going to come to an end. But we don't have to go there. Here's another way to solve it. It's very clear to me, having been in this section, that if you didn't have these lovely seats at all, you could make many more seats if they were as narrowly done as the steerage. In which case, if you got rid of it, you could handle more people, and the airlines wouldn't have to give up a nickel of profit. And you wouldn't have the division. You wouldn't, would you? Between first and second class, would you? And to give you an example of a society that did that, let me close with this story. Years ago, when I first started going to France, because part of my family is French, I would arrive in Paris, a beautiful, beautiful city. And one of the most charming things for an American in Paris is the subway system. Because, I know this is going to be hard to believe, it's clean. And it's quiet. It's quiet because the tires are rubber. The train comes through the tunnel and it doesn't blow your head off with that horrible noise that sounds like people scratching blackboards, only louder, because they have rubber tires. But that's not what I want to talk to you about. I noticed when I was there something I had never seen before. There were first-class cars on the subway and second class. They were all second class except the one in the middle of the train. The middle car was painted a different color and had written it boldly across, first class. If you went into the subway, you had to tell the ticket person whether you were going first class or second. The first class ticket cost more than the second class ticket. It's the same train, but what was it? The middle car was sparsely attended because nobody wanted to pay the extra money. So you could guarantee yourself a seat, and it was more nicely appointed. It wasn't all that different, but a little bit nicer, and not crammed, especially at rush hour. This was much appreciated. So you had first and second class. In the 1960s, things blew up in France. Some of you know, 1968, big year in France. The students and the workers made an alliance. The students went out on the streets against the government, and they called on the workers to join them. And to the surprise of everyone, the workers did. 10 million of them. And they declared that they had lost confidence in their government. Their government was probably the most popular leader of the 20th century, Charles de Gaulle, who had to leave Paris and go to an American air base in Germany because his people had driven him out. And the mood was euphoric. A new society was going to be born. Didn't turn out that way, but for a while, it shook everything in society. And here's what it did. It led to the people of Paris saying, we don't want two classes of subway. We don't want comfortable seats for people with money and uncomfortable seats for people without. That's not democratic. That's not fair. That's over with. And for the last 40 years, there is no two-class system. All the cars on the French subways are the same. Same price, same ticket. We don't allow it. So we could do that on our airplanes too. But we don't. We have a market system. That's how we distribute everything. You all know this, don't you? Because you live in a city where the market is driving out everybody but rich people from this city. You know that. All of you are thinking, unless you're very lucky and have landed the dream rent-controlled apartment of the universe, you know that that's happening. You can see it all around you. So whoever lived in this city, whatever the diversity that made this city great, however you think about this city, it's being transformed by the basic idea that the distribution of apartments goes to the people with the money. Fifth Avenue is famous in Manhattan because if you walk at night up and down Fifth Avenue, it's dark. Nobody's lights are on. You know why? If you ask a realtor, why? Because those apartments are not owned by Americans. They're owned by wealthy people all over the world for whom hiding or parking, depending on your level of honesty, your wealth by buying an apartment in New York is a clever way to get it out of the clutches of your own government, which is a shaky business. You don't want all your eggs in that basket. So you buy an apartment on Fifth Avenue. Once or twice a year, your nephew passing through stays there for 3 days. But other than that, this is just... So who gets the apartment? The people with the money. They don't even live there. We have a shortage of living space, and we have, by the way, thousands, tens of very, very luxurious, in many cases, apartments that's the market. That's the genius efficiency of the market, to distribute the scarce, beautiful apartments to people who are never in them because they're living in even more luxurious residences somewhere else. To believe in the market as some paragon of virtue is crazy. The next time you hear a politician, we have to leave this to the market, you've got a person from whom you should never buy a used car. Because you're dealing with somebody who's either nuts or hustling you. Hustling you. I got a PhD in economics. Part of what I had to do is I had to read a literature that's 100 years old called The Literature of Market Failures. I didn't make that list up. That's what it's called. It's 800 professors, many of whom love capitalism, but who show all the ways in which markets get results nobody wants. We live in a society that doesn't want to remember all of that literature. That was, by the way, written by people who got Nobel Prizes and who have chairs at the University of Chicago and places like that you wouldn't imagine. I had to read all of that to get my degree. Just like people know that the earth is probably more than 6,000 years old. Probably. And that if you encounter a person who tells you it wasn't, and who goes on to tell you about Jonah's experience inside the whale, you know you're dealing with somebody whose way of handling the universe is different, I hope, from yours. When you hear someone talking about the marvels of the market, that's the same fundamentalism. It's just not in religion, it's in economics. And you ought to be at least as skeptical.